Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something a lot of you have asked about. ServiceNow interviews. Specifically, how do you prep for one if, you've mostly just used the platform day to day? You've clicked the buttons, filled the forms, maybe run some reports, but now you're looking at roles like developer, admin, maybe a BA. How do you talk about what's actually happening behind those clicks in an interview? So our mission today is to help you bridge that gap. We've got interview questions, scripting guides, ITSM scenarios. We're going to pull out the key stuff to turn that user experience into real interview confidence.
Yeah, that's a super common path, actually. Like, starting as a user, that's a brilliant foundation. Having that hands-on feel for the platform, understanding what works, what doesn't, what good service feels like, that's gold. But like you said, interviews for those more technical or admin roles, they shift gears. They're really designed to figure out if you understand the why and the how. Why does this feature exist? How is it set up? How would you build it or fix it? It's about adding that solid technical layer on top of your practical user knowledge.
Okay, so let's start there. When an interviewer asks those ServiceNow specific questions, is it just a memory test? Like, define this term. Or is it something, deeper they're trying to figure out?
Oh, definitely deeper. And this is where someone with user experience can really leverage that background. These questions aren't about reciting definitions, not really. They're designed to gauge your practical know-how, your expertise. Can you actually apply ServiceNow features to solve real problems? That's the key. It shows you can actually contribute, not just talk the talk. Think of it like, the car's dashboard inside out as a driver. Now they want to know if you can look under the hood and understand the engine.
Right, the practical application. Makes sense. And there seem to be quite a few different job titles floating around. Business analyst, tech lead, developer, architect, admin. How different are these roles really? And what kind of questions should someone expect based on the role they're going for?
Yeah, the roles are pretty varied, though they all build on that core ServiceNow understanding. And for you, the listener, figuring out these differences is key. It helps you focus your learning, right? And know what interviewers are likely to probe. Your user background gives you that what. You know what needs fixing or what a good process looks like. Now let's look at the roles that focus on the how. Okay, first up, the ServiceNow Business Analyst, or BA. Their main job is bridging that gap between what the business needs and what the tech team builds. They're translators, essentially, gathering requirements, mapping out processes, talking to stakeholders, talking to developers. So interview questions. They'll probably ask about how you gather requirements, maybe ask you to map a process you used as a user, and explain the business logic. Communication is huge here.
Okay, so less code, more process and people.
Exactly. Then you've got the ServiceNow technical lead. This is more of a leadership role. They're overseeing the technical side of projects, designing solutions, guiding the dev team, making sure everyone follows best practices. Interviews here will dig into architecture, complex problem solving, maybe some team management questions. It's a big step up technically.
It definitely needs more deep technical experience.
Sure. Now, the ServiceNow developer. This is the hands-on builder role. Developers design, build, and maintain custom apps and solutions on the platform, automating tasks, scripting workflows using JavaScript heavily. So, interview questions, expect coding challenges, debugging scenarios, explaining ServiceNow APIs. This is where you directly translate the what's from your user days into the how of actually building it.
That seems like a common goal for many users wanting to get technical.
It is. And then there's the ServiceNow Solutions Architect. These folks are designing the big picture, the end-to-end solutions. They take business requirements and turn them into full functional and technical designs, thinking about integration, scalability, performance. Questions here are high-level design, integration patterns, platform optimization usually requires significant prior experience as a dev or admin.
So the big strategic view.
Precisely. And finally, the ServiceNow administrator. Their focus is more on the day-to-day running and configuring of the platform. User accounts, permissions, basic customizations, keeping the instance healthy. Admin interviews often cover user access control, system properties, configuring core modules like incident or change. Very hands-on configuration stuff.
Okay, that breakdown is really helpful. So as a listener coming from that user background, you can sort of pinpoint how you need to learn based on where you want to go.
Exactly. A developer needs the how of scripting, an admin the how of configuration, the AEA the how of requirements. And that's what this deep dive is about, connecting your what to the specific how interviewers are looking for.
Okay, let's peel back another layer then. We all use ServiceNow maybe daily, but what is it fundamentally? Like, how would you define it compared to, say, Salesforce, which also seems to be everywhere?
Good question. At its core, ServiceNow started as an IT service management company, ITSM, founded by Fred Luddy back in 2003, but it's really exploded beyond just IT. Think of it now as like the central platform for managing almost all internal services and workflows in an organization. Stuff like HR service delivery, customer service management, security operations, business apps. It's a unified platform for designing, testing, implementing, and running internal operations.
Internal operations being the key difference from something like Salesforce.
Pretty much. Salesforce is primarily focused outwards on customer relationship management CRM, sales, marketing, customer interactions. ServiceNow is mainly focused inwards, making the organization itself run smoother, automating internal processes, delivering services efficiently to employees. As a user, you've experienced that directly getting IT help, requesting software. Now it's about articulating that strategic internal focus.
Got it. Internal versus external focus. That clarifies things. Now we hear terms like glide record and client script thrown around. We'll get into those more later, I promise. But what's the underlying engine? What's the architecture, the stack, making it all work?
Right, that's the Glide platform. You can think of ServiceNow as this complex, bustling city. The Glide platform is the bedrock, the infrastructure everything is built on. It's basically an extensible web development platform, mostly written in Java, designed specifically for building these forms-based workflow applications. Quickly, things like incident tracking, change requests, service catalogs.
Okay, so what are the main building blocks of this Glide platform?
Let's break down the key components. Understanding these is crucial for moving beyond the user interface. First, you have the Glide servlet. Think of it as the city's main entry point or central dispatch. Every single request coming into ServiceNow, a click, a form submission, loading a page, it goes through the Glide servlet. It handles the request, figures out what page to show, merges data onto forms, and talks to the scripting layer. It's the gatekeeper.
Okay, the traffic controller.
Sort of, yeah. Then there's Glide System, usually just called Gs in scripts. This is like the city's utility provider. It gives you access to common system functions from server-side scripts. Things like gs.add info message to show a message to the user, or gs.gsrd to find out who's logged in. It's your toolkit for system info and actions.
The G's object. Heard that one before.
You will, constantly. Now, Glide Record. This one is absolutely fundamental. It's the master key to the city's database. It's a JavaScript class that lets you interact with any table in service. Now, create records, read them, update them, delete them, CRUD operations. And the magic part, you do it all without writing SQL. It abstracts the database, making development much, much faster and easier.
Wow, okay. No SQL needed. That's huge.
It really is. For the client side, in the user browser, you have Glide Form, usually called G-Form. This lets your scripts interact directly with the form the user is looking at, making fields required, hiding fields, showing messages right on the form. That's G-Form.
So G-Form for the browser, G's on Glide Record for the server.
Generally, yeah. Then there's Jelly. It's an XML-based scripting engine ServiceNow uses to actually render the user interface. The forms, the lists, the UI pages. It's how dynamic content gets built into the pages you see.
Jelly. Sounds sticky.
It can be sometimes. And finally, business rules. These are the automated processes running behind the scenes on the server. They're server-side scripts, typically triggered before or after a database action, like saving a record. They connect directly to the database layer. They enforce business logic consistently.
Okay, so that's the stack. Glide Servlet, JIR-S, Glide Record, G-Form, Jelly, business rules. For a user, understanding this is the jump from seeing the finished building to understanding the foundation or framework.
Exactly. It's key to understanding why things work the way they do and how you could potentially change them. That's what interviewers want to see.
Right. Now, beyond the tech stack, ServiceNow is ITSM for many people. What are those core ITSM modules and concepts that always come up in interviews? How does a user translate their experience here?
This is where your user experience is a massive asset, but you need to frame it technically. Let's hit the big ones, often through scenarios. Incident management. You've submitted incidents, right? The goal is simple. Restore normal service ASAP. Minimize impact. Interviewers love scenarios like, there's a critical outage. Escalation is failing due to bad communication. What do you do? Now, you talk about forming a team, clear owner, war rooms for communication, and for prevention. Better monitoring, training, clear protocols. See, you're applying structure. Or how do you auto-assign incidents for app X to group Y? The answer. A business rule triggering on creation, checking the app field, setting the assignment group. Or an incident is stuck on hold. How do you troubleshoot? You'd say check the workflow, related business rules, UI actions, look for stuck conditions. You're showing diagnostic thinking based on platform components.
So connecting the user problem to the ServiceNow tool needed to fix or configure it.
Precisely. Next, problem management. Users hate recurring issues. Problem management finds the root cause behind incidents. It's detective work. Interviewers might ask about root cause analysis techniques, 5 whys, fishbone diagrams. How do you measure success? Lower MTPR, fewer recurring incidents, problems fixed before they cause incidents. And the known error database, KEDB, is key here. It helps the service desk provide workarounds quickly. So if asked about recurring incidents, you'd outline the process, create a problem record, do RCA, initiate a change request for the permanent fix.
Incident is the fire, problem is the faulty wiring causing the fires.
Perfect analogy. Then, change management. Users see this as planned downtime or new features appearing. It's the controlled process for implementing changes, software releases, hardware upgrades. Key aspects are planning, risk assessment, approvals, often via CAB, change advisory board, and deployment. Scenarios could involve handling emergency changes, assess urgency, emergency CAB, testing, configuring multi-department approval workflows using the workflow engine, or investigating outages after a change, reviewing the change request, tasks, logs, related incidents.
Controlling risk is central to change management.
Absolutely. Service level management, SLM, is about SLA's service level agreements. Users just know they expect a certain response time. SLM is the process of defining, agreeing, monitoring, and reporting on those service levels. Questions might focus on how you'd improve service quality to meet SLAs, proactive monitoring, better training, process refinement, using feedback.
Making sure promises are kept.
Exactly. The service catalog. Every user interacts with this. It's the menu of services and products users can request. A key concept here is the record producer. It looks like a catalog item, but it actually creates a task record, like an incident, directly. It's often a more user-friendly way to submit issues than going straight to the incident form. A common question: how do you create a catalog item that requires multiple tasks for fulfillment? The answer is using a workflow attached to the item, defining each task and assignment.
So translating a user request into a back-end process.
You got it. Finally, the CMDB Configuration Management Database. Users rarely see this directly, but it underpins everything. Think of it as the definitive map and inventory of all IT assets: hardware, software, services, documentation, and crucially, their relationships. Why is it important? Accurate change impact analysis, faster incident problem resolution, knowing what's connected to what, better visibility, compliance. The list goes on. Interviewers might ask you to differentiate CIs, configuration items, the building blocks like servers, apps, docs from assets, often the financial or lifecycle view like specific laptops. Understanding this shows you get the structure.
CMDB is the source of truth underpinning all the processes.
That's the goal, yes. So for all these modules, the shift for you, the user-turned-candidate, is from just experiencing the process to understanding how it's configured, managed, and automated within ServiceNow. That's vital for admin, dev, and BA roles.
All right, let's get into the real technical weeds now. Client scripts, business rules, UI policies, these come up all the time in interviews for developer or admin roles. Can you break down the core differences? And maybe more importantly, when would you use each one?
Okay, this is absolutely fundamental. As a user, you see the form change, maybe a field becomes mandatory. As a dev or admin, you need to know why and how to make that happen. Let's start with the simplest. UI policies. Think of these as configuration, not code. They're rules you set up to dynamically change field behavior on a form, making fields mandatory, visible, hidden, or read-only based on certain conditions. Crucially, without scripting. You use UI policies for straightforward, condition-based UI changes because they're easier to manage and generally perform better than scripts for simple tasks.
Okay, simple, condition-based UI changes, UI policy. No code.
Right. Next, client scripts. These do involve code JavaScript, and they run on the client side, meaning in the user's web browser. Their main job is to provide immediate feedback and improve the user experience before the data even gets sent to the server. Things like validating data as the user types, auto-populating one field based on another, showing alerts or confirmation messages. For example, an onSubmit client script runs when the user clicks Submit. You could use it to check if certain fields are filled correctly and stop the submission. If not, function on submit. If gform.getValueAlert field cannot be empty, return false. You use client scripts for that real-time interactive form experience. They use the gform object heavily to manipulate the form.
So browser side, JavaScript, immediate user feedback, equal client script. Uses gform.
You're nailing it. Finally, business rules. These are the heavy lifters running on the server side. They execute on the ServiceNow instance itself, usually before or after a record is inserted, updated, deleted, or queried in the database. Business rules are for enforcing core business logic, ensuring data integrity, and triggering automation after data is submitted. The classic example. Setting an incident's priority based on its impact and urgency after the user saves it. If current.impact equals 1 and a current.urgency equals 1, current.priority 1. Notice current that represents the record being processed on the server. There's also previous rule which holds the record's values before the change. You use business rules for logic that must run consistently, regardless of how the record was changed, form, integration, script, or for logic that needs server-side access. Server-side, JavaScript, database interaction, core logic, core business rule uses current and previous. Exactly. So UI policy for simple, codeless UI changes. Client script for complex, interactive UI changes in the browser. Business rule for server-side logic and data manipulation tied to database actions. Understanding when to use which is key for interviews.
That clears it up immensely. Now, you mentioned Glide Record earlier as the database gateway. It sounds incredibly important. Can you give us the lowdown? What is it? And maybe walk through some practical examples an interviewer might ask about.
Absolutely. Glide Record is, well, it's probably the most important single class for anyone doing server-side scripting in ServiceNow. It's a JavaScript class that lets you interact with the database query records, insert new ones, update existing ones, delete them, the full CRUD suite. The beauty, as we touched on, is it abstracts the SQL away. You use object methods, not SQL commands. This makes data interaction much more accessible. As a user, you fill forms. As the developer or admin, you use Glide Record to work with that data programmatically.
Okay, show me. How would I query data? Like find all critical incidents?
Right. So first you create a new Glide Record object for the incident table, var gr equals new Glide Record incident. Then you add your conditions using addQuery, active, true, only open once, gr.addQuery, priority 1, priority is 1, critical. Then you execute the query, .gr.query, and you loop through the results, while gr.info found incident plus gr.number, gr.number gets the incident number field. An interviewer might ask, find all incidents assigned to Beth Anglin where the state is new. You'd use addQuery, assign .name, Beth Anglin, and addQuery state, value for new state.
Okay, query, conditions, loop. Makes sense. How about updating?
Updating is similar. First, you need to get the specific record you want to update, often using its unique sysid. var gr equals new Glide Record incident. If gr.gr, the CSID of the incident, tries to fetch one specific record, inside the if, you just set the fields like object properties. gr.short description, updated by script, gr.worknotes, adding a worknote programmatically, and then crucially, you call update, an interviewer scenario. Script a way to set all software incidents older than 7 days to resolve state. You'd query them, set gr.state equals value for resolved, and call dryer.update inside the loop.
Get for single record, set fields, then update. Got it. Creating new records.
Creating starts with initialize. var gr equals new Glide Record. Not create a problem record this time. gr.initialize prepares a blank record. Then you set the fields you need. gr with short descriptions, recurring system crashes, investigate, gr.priority 2. For reference fields like assign photo, you usually set them using the sysid, gr.assign photo, the sysid of user or group, and finally call insert. Var new problem cell also eto.insert creates the record and returns its sysid. Interview question. How would you create a change request from an incident script? You'd initialize a change request, Glide Record, populate fields maybe copying from the incident current object, and then insert.
Initialize. Set fields, insert. And deleting. It seems risky.
It can be. Use with caution. You query the records you want to delete. var gsr equals new Glide Record. Let's say cleaning up old emails. Growlbot.addQuery says created on gs.days ago, older than 180 days. gs.days ago is super useful. Grad.addQuery, type received ignored. Maybe you only ignored once. Then you have two main options. Grouter.deleteRecord. Inside a while, gs.nextLoop deletes them one by one. Or, more efficiently for large sets, gr.deleteMultiple, which deletes all matching records at once. You definitely need to be careful with delete multiple. Double check your query.
Okay, delete record for one, delete multiple for many. And GS has useful date stuff. This Glide Record seems absolutely central to automation.
It is. If you're going for a dev or admin role, you have to be comfortable with Glide Record. It's how you interact with the platform's data programmatically. Mastering the basics query, insert, update, delete is non-negotiable.
We touched on script includes briefly. How do they differ from business rules, really? They both sound like server-side code storage.
Great question. It trips people up. They both use server-side JavaScript, yes, but their purpose and how they run are different. Think structure and reusability. A script include is essentially a library of reusable code. You define functions or classes within it. Crucially, a script include only runs when it's explicitly called by another script, like a business rule, a UI action, a workflow script, etc. You put code in a script include when you know you'll need to use that same logic in multiple places, or if the logic is complex and you want to keep your business rules cleaner. It promotes modularity.
So it's like creating your own custom function library.
Exactly like that. Now, a business rule, remember, is event-driven. It runs automatically when a specific database action happens on a specific table, like before insert, after update, etc., if its conditions are met. So the difference: business rules react to database events automatically. Script includes are passive libraries of code waiting to be called. You wouldn't put complex, multi-step validation logic that you need in 5 different places directly into 5 business rules. That's a maintenance nightmare. You put that logic into one script include function and then have each of those 5 business rules simply call that function. Keep it simple, stupid, right? DRY. Don't repeat yourself.
So business rule triggers the action. Script include provides the reusable tool to perform the action.
Perfect summary. It's about writing maintainable, scalable code. Using script includes properly demonstrates a more mature development approach, which interviewers look for.
That makes a lot of sense architecturally. Avoid repeating yourself.
So if business rules react to database events, what about other kinds of events? Like something happens in the system that isn't just saving a record. Good point. That's where script actions fit in. Script actions are server-side scripts, like business rules, but they're triggered specifically by events being generated in the system. These events can be predefined system events, like incident.created, attachment.read, or custom events that you define and trigger yourself using gs.eventQueue. So when an event is fired, the system checks if any script actions are registered for that event name. If there are, and their optional condition script evaluates to true, then the main script runs.
So not tied to a direct database operation like insert update, but to a named event.
Exactly. Inside the script action script, you get access to the event object itself, which contains parameters passed when the event was queued, and often the current object representing the record related to the event. A common use case might be triggering an integration or a complex notification based on a specific event firing, maybe something that needs to happen asynchronously after the initial transaction. It shows you understand ServiceNow's event-driven architecture beyond just the basic table operations.
Okay, events triggering script actions. Another automation tool in the box. We've covered backend logic, data. What about building the actual user interface itself beyond UI policies?
Right, it's the front end. While UI policies and client scripts handle dynamic behavior on existing forms, the actual structure of forms, lists, and custom interfaces often involves Jelly. Jelly is Apache Jelly, an XML-based scripting engine. It's how ServiceNow historically rendered much of its UI. It allows you to mix HTML-like tags with embedded JavaScript, using tags like g.evaluate and special ServiceNow tags like g.uform, g.uinputfield to dynamically generate the HTML sent to the browser.
XML and JavaScript mixed together. Sounds complex.
It can be, yeah. Modern ServiceNow development is leaning more towards the Service Portal framework, using Angular, for custom interfaces, but Jelly is still fundamental to understanding how core platform UI pages and UI macros work. You don't need to be a Jelly guru for most roles, especially admin or basic dev roles focusing on standard forms. But knowing that Jelly is the engine under the hood for rendering UI components gives you a fuller picture. It explains how those forms you used get built programmatically. Relevant for deeper developer or architect roles creating custom UI.
Okay, we've covered a ton of technical ground architecture, ITSM modules, scripting, UI. Stepping back, what are the best overall strategies for someone coming from that user background to really nail these interviews, beyond just learning the terms?
Great question. It's about tying it all together. First, really understand the platform's core modules like incident, problem, change, service catalog. Not just how to use them, but their purpose, common configurations, and how they interact. Relate your user experience to these processes. Second, practice scripting. Seriously. Get a personal developer instance, PDI, they're free, and actually write code. Practice common glide record queries, write simple business rules, experiment with client scripts. Even basic stuff builds confidence and understanding. Try automating something you found tedious as a user. Third, get familiar with the data model. Understand tables, fields, relationships. How is an incident related to a user? How is a CI related to a change request? This helps with reporting and scripts questions. Fourth, know the best practices. Interviewers want to see you won't break things. Learn about update sets, coding standards, security considerations, performance impacts of bad code. And fifth, crucially, communicate effectively. Be confident. Explain your thought process even if you're unsure of the perfect answer. And leverage your user experience. Be honest. My main experience is as a user, but I understand the process challenges, and I've been learning scripting on my PDI to understand how to automate this. That shows initiative and connects your past experience to your future role.
That's solid advice. Practice, know the fundamentals, and frame your user experience as a strength. Now, what about when things go wrong? Code has bugs, configurations have side effects. How do ServiceNow pros debug their work?
Debugging, a developer's best friend, or worst nightmare. Essential skill. Moving from user to technical means shifting from reporting errors to fixing them. ServiceNow has built-in tools. The script editor itself does basic syntax checking automatically when you save. Little red underlines, error messages, use them. For client scripts, running in the browser, the main tool is the JavaScript debug window. Admins can usually access it. It has a few parts. There's the JavaScript log where you can print messages from your script using jslog. My variable is plus my var. Super useful for seeing values. And the field watcher is fantastic. You pick a field on the form and it shows you everything happening to that field. UI policies, client scripts, data lookups. Great for figuring out why a field is behaving unexpectedly.
Field Watcher sounds incredibly useful for untangling UI issues.
It really is. For server-side scripts, business rules, script includes, etc., your main tool is logging. You use glide system methods like gs.log, my debug message here, plus current.number, gs.logger, that's not wrong, gs.log warning, check this value. These messages get written to the system log, syslog table, so you can go there after your script runs and see what happened, what the variable values were. gsds.info is similar but shows messages on screen if triggered from certain contexts. Good for quick checks.
So JS log for client, gs.log for server.
That's the quick summary, yeah. And finally, thinking about integrations, you need to understand HTTP status codes. When ServiceNow talks to another system, or vice versa, via REST SOAP, the response includes a code. 200 OK means success. 201 created means success in creating something. But 400 bad requests, 401 unauthorized, 404 not found indicate client-side errors. Your request was wrong. 500 internal server error means other system had a problem. Knowing how to check these codes and handle the errors gracefully in your integration scripts is vital.
Right, knowing how to diagnose the problem is half the battle.
Absolutely. Debugging isn't just about finding typos. It's about understanding the flow, checking assumptions, and using the tools systematically. It's a core competency for any technical role.
Okay, one last big area. ServiceNow rarely lives alone, right? It integrates with monitoring tools, HR systems, other ITSM platforms. What are the key integration concepts someone should know? Maybe not to implement day one, but to show broader awareness, especially for more senior roles.
Yeah, integration is huge. Understanding how ServiceNow plays with others shows you see the bigger picture. Essential for architects, leads, even BAs defining requirements. First, the basics of web communication. HTTP methods. We use these in REST APIs all the time. GET is for retrieving data. POST is typically for creating new data. QT is usually for replacing existing data entirely. PATCH is for partially updating existing data, just changing a few fields. And delete is, well, for deleting. Understanding the difference, especially between put and patch, is important.
Get, post, put, patch, delete, the verbs of the web.
Pretty much. Then authentication. How do systems prove who they are securely? OAuth is very common and recommended. It uses tokens instead of sending passwords directly. More secure, more flexible. Basic authentication, username, password, is simpler but less secure. Okay, for some internal things maybe. Mutual authentication uses certificates on both sides for very high security.
Oh, oath being the modern standard mostly.
Generally preferred, yes.
Right.
Now, the API ServiceNow offers for integration. The Table API gives you direct CRO'd access to ServiceNow tables via REST. It's easy to use, but maybe too easy, it grants broad access, which can be risky if the external system isn't careful. That's why scripted REST APIs are often better. Here, you as a ServiceNow developer build your own custom API endpoints. You define exactly what operations are allowed, what parameters are needed, and you write the scripts to handle the request and response. Much more control, much more secure. You only expose what's necessary.
So Table API is like giving out the master key. Scripted REST is building a specific service window.
Fantastic analogy. That's exactly it. We should also mention REST versus SOAP, two major styles of web services. REST is generally more lightweight, uses standard HTTP methods, works well with JSON data, often seen as simpler. Security relies heavily on HTTPS and authentication methods like OAuth. SOAP is more formal, uses XML exclusively, has built-in standards for things like security, WS security, and reliability, often seen in more traditional enterprise or financial integrations where those extra standards are mandated. ServiceNow supports both.
REST is more common now, but SOAP still exists for specific needs.
Correct. And ServiceNow helps you work with these. The REST API Explorer is a built-in tool. It lets you choose an API, fill in parameters, and actually send test requests to your own instance, seeing the exact request and response. Invaluable for learning and debugging integrations. To actually make a REST call from ServiceNow, for example in a script, you typically use the SLAN's REST Message v2 API class.
Tools built right into help. That's good.
Definitely. So even if you're not building integrations immediately, knowing these concepts, HTTP methods, auth, the different APIs like table versus scripted REST, REST versus SOAP, shows you understand how ServiceNow fits into the wider enterprise technology landscape.
Wow. Okay. We have really covered a massive amount of ground today, from being a user, clicking around, maybe feeling frustrated sometimes, to seeing this whole world underneath the architecture, the logic, the scripting, the integrations. It's a lot. So for that listener ready to make the leap from user to developer, admin, BA, what's the single biggest takeaway?
I think the biggest takeaway is don't discount your user experience. It's genuinely valuable. You have context. You know what users need, what makes sense, what's painful. That's your starting point. The next step is just diving into the technical side with curiosity. Learn Glide Record. Build something small in a PDI. Understand why the platform works the way it does. Combine that deep user empathy with those growing technical skills. That combination is powerful and makes for a really well-rounded ServiceNow professional. It's not about forgetting your user past. It's about building on it.
Build on that user superpower. I like that. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive, and here's something for you, the listener, to think about. Your time as a ServiceNow user gave you a unique insight into what works well and, maybe more importantly, what could be way better. As you start learning the technical side scripting, configuration, maybe even integrations, how can you use that user perspective, that superpower, to design solutions that are truly effective, efficient, and maybe even delightful for the next generation of users? If you had the keys to the kingdom tomorrow, full dev access, what's the very first problem, that nagging user frustration, that you would solve? Think about it.